friends. Thanks for being here with me today. J.R. Dukes at your service. Give me 1 second. I just hit the go buttons. Let's make sure everybody can hear me. Any audio issues, please let me know in the comments. And it looks like we're on Twitch. Hello, everyone. YouTube sounds like it's coming through good. Fantastic. All right, my friends. Of course, I am J.R. Dukes, and you're at the home of the free-minded patriots. This is where the woke choke, the truth prevails, and the battles for your freedoms are fought and won. You can always find me right here on YouTube at J.R. Dukes, or as I like to say, hit me up on my website at jrdukes.com. I'm on most of the platforms. On X, I'm at Reach J.R. Dukes. So today, we got a big day today because we're going to talk about Letitia James, sweet Fani Willis of Fulton County, Georgia fame, and most importantly, we are here together to see President Trump, the great President Trump, I might add, award posthumously the Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk. Obviously, he's already loved and dearly missed, and I think it's only proper that the president go ahead and follow through with his promise to award this medal to Charlie. And I think his widow is going to be there to take the medal on behalf of Charlie, which, of course, is proper and appropriate. What a great, great day. What a great season. What a great time in our country's history right now. Obviously, we're still mourning the death of Charlie Kirk. It's just the way life is, folks. There's good, there's bad. But let's talk about some good things real quick while we're getting everything set up. And by the way, if you're here to watch the Charlie Kirk ceremony, I have my eyes fixed on the White House website and on their YouTube channel. And I have another channel that I'm monitoring, so you will not miss nothing here. You are definitely going to hear all about Charlie Kirk receiving his medal, posthumously, of course. So you're not going to miss anything. Do not fret whatsoever. Judy, thank you for being here. You are definitely appreciated. So if you haven't done so already, folks, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you are from. And I will definitely get to the questions one way or the other as I have time to do so as the events unfold. So if you see me looking around with my eyes, the reason for that is, as I said, I want to make sure that I do not forget to take this live just as soon as the video comes up. I'm going to do one final check into it, and then I'm going to go ahead and get into my monologue for the day. Looks like we're just waiting for the White House to go live here, and they should do that momentarily. So as soon as they do, we will be on top of it. So, folks, today is one of those rare days that it just feels right. You know, the world has a lot of chaos, a lot of corruptions, a lot of double standards, and today we get to witness something very good, something honorable. President Trump is set to award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I tell you what, this isn't just a ceremony. This is a statement. Obviously, President Trump and Charlie Kirk were good friends. Charlie Kirk, at least in part, was an individual that contributed to the success of Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk represents an entire generation of young conservatives who refuse to bow down to the woke mob, who refused to stay silent while our country was being dismantled piece by piece. Charlie has been fearless in his defense of faith, family, and freedom. And whether you agreed with him or not, I mean, let's be straight up about it. I agreed with about everything he's ever had to say as far as his political leanings are concerned. But even if you didn't agree with everything 100%, you cannot deny that he's done more to educate, motivate, and awake young Americans than almost anyone alive today. And let's be real. This moment is about more than just one young man getting a medal, although it is posthumously. This is about a movement being recognized. It's about the fighters, the patriots, the true tellers, the people who refuse to quit, even when the entire system was stacked against them. So today we're going to celebrate Charlie Kirk and his legacy. We're also going to celebrate what he stood for, his courage, his conviction, and a love for this country that can't be bought, bullied, or broken. It really truly is amazing. This is a proud day for America. So let's enjoy it together. Let's talk about it, and let's keep fighting for the same exact principles that Charlie represented, and frankly, bring us all together right here today. So without further ado, let me check one more time before we get into another subject. Again, I am monitoring live the White House. They have a website that they dedicate to these type of things. And of course, they also have another live feed page that they dedicate to this. So hopefully we will have a live feed here very, very soon. Now, it's supposed to start at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you guys know how this is. Very few things ever go off without some type of time delay, especially when it comes to the White House. I will say they are more prompt than, let's say, most other administrations have been. I remember waiting for stuff under the last administration, the Biden administration. We would really wait potentially hours for something for something to develop or for something to go on. So what we're going to do, let's just go ahead and start talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is this war on lawfare. So let's go ahead and share my screen with you guys without further ado. Here we go. Now, we are all familiar with sweet Letitia James. The New York Attorney General cannot stand this woman, and finally an indictment has been handled down. And I'm going to tell you right now, directly and definitively, this is not the end of this for Letitia James. I talked about this in my last video. There are more indictments coming down for her. I guarantee this 110%. She has 4 or 5 different properties, depending on what source you believe, where she is suspected of some type of fraud. And folks, this is not a one and done type of situation with Letitia James. She has a pattern of this type of behavior, this type of fraud that frankly goes back 20, 26 years. She was doing this back in the 80s. She has one property where she put her own father, listed him as her husband. Again, these are things we've looked at on this particular program. Listed her father as her husband. And again, it's a pattern. It's a pattern of deception, a pattern of lies, a pattern of fraud. This is the same woman that would stand before you and me every chance she got, and she would say, oh, no one's above the law. Just because you're rich and powerful does not mean you will be held to account. And guess what, Letitia James? These are the exact same words we are going to hold you to. And, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I really think that's about as direct and about as straight as I can say it myself. So let's go ahead and get into this first video. There is a lot to talk about with this case. And of course, I have to give a shout out to Sam Antire and one of his other associates that worked with him as far as exposing Letitia James and the nonsense that she's perpetrated, the fraud she's perpetrated clearly on the American people. So have to give a shout out to him. His website, I believe it's whitecollarcrime.com. Great website. This guy is a forensic accountant, and he does not leave any detail without acknowledging it, without turning it over and looking under every single rock. So let's take a peek at this together, and we'll talk about it as we go along.
Big Tish is in big trouble. New York Attorney General Letitia James, the queen of dishing it out but can't take it, indicted on charges of mortgage fraud.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement.
I can't help it. I just have to say the obvious. Can you imagine just how, this woman has to have a serious high opinion of herself, thinking that there's a double standard that apparently applies to everyone else except her. This is the queen of going after people, of weaponizing your office, weaponizing your department. And now she's calling it out, saying that somehow she has been singled out, that she has been wronged, somehow, some way. Give me a break.
Agencies to do his bidding. All because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General.
You know, I guess she did do her job because she did fulfill her promise of going after Trump. If you remember, she even made it her campaign platform.
America is an uncharted territory. We are angrier and more deeply divided than we've ever been at any point in our history since the Civil War. And at the eye of the storm is Donald Trump, ripping families apart, threatening women's most basic rights. I'm running for Attorney General because I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake.
Challenge this illegitimate president. This is the woman that weaponized her office. She ran on a platform that I'm going to get Trump. I'm going to take him down. And remember this, too. It's not just President Trump that she went after. She went after his children, went after Ivanka Trump, went after Eric Trump, went after Donald Trump Jr. She was relentless. I think I heard Eric Trump in a recent interview say that he has been subpoenaed 127 times by this particular attorney general. Can you imagine that? 127 times. She literally would talk about her fantasies of taking some of Donald Trump's buildings and putting her name on any particular building that had the name Trump on it. And now she has the gall to essentially say that somehow this is unfair and the entire federal government is now weaponized against her. Well, I guess the way I look at it is tough.
And despite securing a verdict against Trump, the over $500 million fine was then thrown out on appeal. And now that James finds herself in the same hot seat she put Trump in, well, of course, this is how the fake news mainstream media defends her.
What Tish James, and again, we're still getting the details, but if it's related to this mortgage issue, I mean, this is something that everyone in America, or many people at least, if you're lucky enough to be able to buy a house in America, you deal with this, right? The federal government doesn't go after all of these people for doing this.
Let me translate that real quick, just so we're very clear about this. This is a CNN news anchor, basically, and of course I'm paraphrasing, she's saying she shouldn't be prosecuted for this because guess what? Everybody does it. Everybody breaks the law. Well, guess what? That's a lie. I've never engaged in this type of behavior. No one I know has ever engaged in this type of behavior. And what she's saying is, hey, this is minor. This is normal. She's basically being picked on. And this reporter could not be further from the truth. A crime is a crime. Right here in my home state of Florida, I saw a man and wife that lived on the other side of the county that I lived on, closer into Tampa. They are currently serving 20 years in prison because they lied on a federal form pertaining to a sale of a property where they did not disclose that it had a sinkhole problem, a sinkhole damage. An insurance claim was paid out on that particular property, and they failed to disclose that on the federal form. And this house, unfortunately, was sold to a single mother with 1 or 2 kids. And it, of course, just totally ruins the house and the property, and it hurt this particular individual severely, financially, of course. There was no injuries that I know of, but of course, it just destroyed any value she had in the house. And it was all because of this husband and wife's fraud that they committed against this individual by not disclosing that there was sinkhole damage on a particular property. And they're serving 20 years apiece. Yes, 20 years for that. And this is the same AG, along with all the other folks that conspired with them in the Democratic administration to what? Weaponize the federal, state, and local governments in an effort to get Donald Trump, to keep him off the ballot, to not allow him to run for president again. Make no mistake about this. I think it really has to be stated definitively and clearly. If Donald Trump had not won the election that just happened this past year, not a doubt in my mind, unfortunately, he, maybe some of his kids, would be serving a very long prison stint in Rikers Island right now. There's no way Judge Merchant, with his political leanings, his political associations, would allow an individual convicted on 34 felony Class E misdemeanors, an individual who had to be admonished by the court and fined at least 10 different times, that he would allow him to leave his courtroom without some type of lengthy prison stint. So make no mistake about it, that is the honest truth, period.
No, I've bought 2 homes and I did not commit mortgage fraud, CNN. Not everyone falsifies records, inflates their wealth, or pretends to live in a home they don't to get a more favorable interest rate because it's illegal. But of course, as the top attorney of New York, Letitia James, she knew that, but she thought she wouldn't get caught. No worries, Tish. Your cronies will they'll always back you.
This is not simply an attack on Attorney General Tish James. This is an attack on our city. And each one of us represents different parts of that same city, and we speak with one voice today.
Yeah, and that's her partner in crime, obviously. This individual is obviously more than likely, unfortunately, this Madani guy is going to be the next New York mayor, if you can believe that. Imagine this. You have a guy that's depending on what you think about him, he calls himself a Democratic socialist. At a minimum, he's a socialist. He's probably more along the lines of a communist. But let's just go ahead and say he's a socialist. He's also a Muslim. I believe he's only been in this country since 2017, 2018. Imagine New York City that suffered an Islamic terrorist attack on 9/11 with, 12, 20 different individuals that participated in this attack on our country. And now New York City is about to elect a Muslim, a communist, socialist Muslim mayor is going to be the person at the helm of New York City. What is going on with people? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you can relate to this or not. Sometimes I wake up and I think I'm living in the Twilight Zone. I try not to be this older guy that cannot get a grip on current reality. I'm telling you, the world has lost its collective mind. And that's the very reason I make these programs like this. I want to tell people this is not normal. It's okay to speak up about it, just like Charlie Kirk did. It's not normal. It's not right. It's not the direction we should be going. And we should not be afraid to speak our mind accordingly and to call something that's wrong, to call it wrong.
This is what tyranny looks like. Donald Trump has turned the Justice Department into his personal attack dog to go after his political enemies. This is tyranny. This is outrageous. Every American should be horrified, absolutely horrified about what has happened.
Okay. I don't know what's more horrifying, Chuck, that you don't realize that no matter what you do, AOC is still going to go after your job and take your job, or that you might actually believe the lies coming out of your mouth. Because why would anyone defend this female version of Al Sharpton? It is beyond me.
Stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale.
Can you imagine if somebody that looks like me stood up before the cameras and said that we have to stand up to someone that's black, that's too dark, that's a woman, that's whatever? Can you imagine if I said those comments in reverse? Do you think they would just be accepted? Do you think people would just kind of chuckle about it and just keep repeating it, off and on like we do with this clip of Letitia James? Or do you think we would have Black Lives Matter and every other type of political group you can possibly imagine out in the street protesting day and night? I can tell you which one I believe would happen. And it's really a shame that we tolerate this type of behavior from our elected politicians. This woman is a crook. This woman is not the best America has to offer. She is a part of this lawfare. And listen, I've said it many times on my program before. At first, I was hoping President Trump would just better man. I'm not going to go seek retribution. I'm not going to go after these enemies of mine. I'm going to put the country's interests first. A long time ago this year, I came to a different conclusion. The only way to make sure this never happens again in our country is to do what President Trump is doing right now, and that is to call these people out and hold them accountable. You have to set an example with these people. They have to know if you engage in it, it can come back and bite you, and it will sooner or later. And that's exactly what these people are learning, and that's exactly the way I hope it continues to go, because it is wrong. It's been wrong. And I can't wait to see Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Adam Schiff, and a few other people brought in and held accountable accordingly.
Too male, too pale. She chants it. And then the white guys behind her actually say the same thing. Can you imagine being a white guy cheering too male, too pale? But when you look at this case of Big Tish, the hypocrisy of it, it is truly profound. James posting this just last year on X. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. And when she's not smirking for the cameras like she loved to do, especially when she was sitting behind Trump in court, Tish James said this over and over again.
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Amen.
Yeah. Finally something I can agree with you on.
Yes, I agree with her completely on that. And she has to be held accountable for those same words. On your screen right now, by the way, I just have to point out, you have Letitia James right here, front and center. You see that beautiful look on her face right there. This is what she did routinely when Donald Trump was on trial for whatever. She made sure she was right behind him and giving him the stare down. This was what she lived for day and night. She made sure that the entire state of New York and their resources were brought to bear against President Trump, even when they got that ridiculous judgment against him. By the way, that entire judgment has been thrown out, thank God, in its absolute entirety, as it should have been. It should never have been issued in the first place. But remember, they also really tried to kneecap him and cripple him, even a wealthy man like Donald Trump. This is the same woman that continuously protested the bond, the $550 million bond that President Trump had to put up in cash or in a bond through a bonding company. She was the front of the line, so to speak, causing the courts to have to constantly review as to whether or not they were going to accept the particular bond that President Trump put together. Because when you're talking about $450 million in cash, even someone like President Trump does not have that type of money in liquid cash, because their money is generally in investments or in stocks, or in President Trump's case, he keeps his money in buildings and real estate. And it's just not that easily to convert those type of resources over. So she did everything she could to make it absolutely impossible for President Trump to even appeal this crazy sentence that her and Judge Engeron decided they were going to conspire and put together against President Trump. Well, it hasn't worked out for her, and I know she's going to have more indictments down the road, but let's continue.
Tish, no one is above the law, not an attorney general or a president of the United States, that you will weaponize the justice system to go after, right? Trump was hit with 91 charges. Where were the calls of tyranny then? Where were they? Oh, everybody does this then. But you know what? They all failed because they were all bogus. Many in the Democrat Party did everything they could to destroy Donald Trump. They tried to destroy his marriage. They tried to destroy his family and, of course, his legacy and his path to the White House. And I truly believe, had he not become the president of the United States, that was his mugshot. Where's Tish's mugshot? He would likely be behind bars as we speak, for the simple fact.
Have y'all noticed how his official portrait for this particular term looks strikingly similar to his mugshot? And what a beautiful mugshot that was, right?
Fact that he wouldn't play ball with them. He's too honest, if you think about it, for his own good. He became too great of a threat to the Democrat grift, to the very deep state they'll tell you doesn't even exist. But Big Tish is learning, along with several others like Jack Smith and James Comey, Adam Schiff, a few others, that karma is a dish that's served cold.
Amen to that.
Let's go deeper into that forensic accountant who first exposed.
Okay, this is going to be a great interview coming up. This is Sam Antire coming up. And you guys know I have all but praised him consistently on this program, and will continue to do so. His work is second to none, and he has been very instrumental in bringing down this corrupt Letitia James. But I want to give our listeners just a quick reminder. if you've tuned in to hear or to watch the live ceremony of President Trump awarding the Congressional Medal of Freedom to the widow of Charlie Kirk, you're at the right place. We're just waiting for it to get started. I'm checking my monitors right now, and nothing has started. We don't even have a live feed yet. It's scheduled for 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We know how this works, right? It's a little bit delayed, and that is the way it is. But I can assure you, as soon as the feed comes up, we will go to it live. But let's continue with our friend Sam and see how he feels about the indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Tish.
Big
The
Tish.
one, the only. Forensic accountant Sam Antar.
There we go.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
So, is this political? Because you just heard Chuck Schumer talk. This is all political witch hunt. This is the weaponization of the Justice Department. Are you part of the Trump administration? Because you're the first one who actually put this all together.
First of all, I don't give a damn about Trump. I couldn't care less if it's political or not political.
That's what makes us even sweeter, folks. This guy here is a Democrat, and I would not necessarily say he's a friend of President Trump by any stretch of imagination. However, he does have a serious disdain for Letitia James.
That's not my game. My game is forensic accounting. My game is showing proof, and that's what I've done. Every single allegation that I've made regarding her is backed up by documents, and that's why they indicted her. Now, they indicted her on only one property so far, which is her Peroni Avenue property in Norfolk, Virginia. She has 2 other properties where she's committed serial mortgage fraud, a pattern of mortgage fraud. The other one is also in Norfolk, Virginia. It's on Sterling Street. And the third property is in Brooklyn. She's committed mortgage fraud over a period of 43 years. 13 mortgages containing false information. She put her signature.
Yeah, he's exactly right. We're talking 43 years ago, a pattern of 43 years. I said 26 years earlier. That's not correct. It goes back 43 years, all the way back into the early 1980s. I believe her first quote unquote fraud that can be proven. And again, we're talking about a pattern of fraud. That's the reason why this is not going to hold up. And when she goes in front of the judge and says it's a selective prosecution and that it's a one-off. No, it's not a one-off, folks. There's multiple properties over 40 some years where she has done the exact same thing.
Is on the documents, and those documents are easily publicly sourced, which I did.
Was this a simple mistake? I mean, it's one thing if somebody like I'm not an attorney. Is this a simple mistake that she could have made? Which I find hard to believe, considering she is the top attorney of New York State.
Well, the media would have you believe that this is an isolated incident because they don't want to talk about the other properties that she's going to be indicted for, which I believe she's going to be indicted for.
This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning, okay? There's something, they put their foot in the door on this property. There's going to be superseding indictments. But when you look at one property by itself, it makes it easier for them to say it's a one-off, it's a mistake, okay? But when you look at the pattern of behavior spanning to 1983, you say every single mortgage that she signed contained false information.
Could she be guilty of mail fraud too?
Yeah, mail fraud, mail and wire fraud, that's an easy one. The feds, they did that to me. She's going to...
A quick background, if y'all are not familiar with this guy here, you guys remember those old commercials? I think it was Crazy Eddie commercials where the guy was on TV and he was like, you got to come buy this, you got to come buy that. The prices are insane. That Crazy Eddie. This is the guy that was his accountant. And this guy went to prison himself. I think he's going to talk about it here for a little bit. So he knows exactly how the court system, if you will, works, how the jail system works, and just in general, how the legal system works. And it is not something you want to be on the adversarial side of. But this guy since then has cleaned up his act, so to speak. He has become basically a forensic accounting, and he focuses on any type of corruption wherever he may find the corruption. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. Sam, you're exactly right. There is much more to come, a lot more to come. And I don't think this is going to be the end of Letitia James's indictment. And one quick thing here too. This is just the beginning of the beginning. You heard him talk about they can go after her for mail fraud. There's wire fraud. In addition to that, when you have crimes involving your home, generally they can prove some type of tax fraud involving not paying your taxes or not paying them correctly, or like Letitia James went after President Trump for, what was it? Misclassifying an expenditure that they were able to manipulate into 34 felonies. Well, the same thing, in my opinion, is about to happen with Letitia James. You can have insurance fraud, you can have bank fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, all related, tax fraud, all related to this same history of malfeasance that she has clearly engaged in, and she deserves it.
Maybe
obviously.
even income tax evasion too.
Right, because she didn't put that income on her taxes.
No. Well, that's
Maybe.
okay. Let me explain. She has what's known as a Schedule E. You file when you have rental property. On the Schedule E, it says that she had 0 personal days in the property, and she gave it a fair market rental. That was the evidence that implicated her, because a Schedule E basically says that I violated the mortgage terms. I misrepresented the mortgage because I was supposed to use it as a secondary home, not a rental.
So it's Big Tish in big trouble.
She's in big trouble. Listen, I wouldn't want the federal government up my rear end. I had them up my rear end for 10 years. So, I wouldn't want, she should stay hydrated. That's my advice to Tish James.
Why is that?
Because this is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning. All right. Thank you so much, Sam Antar. As always, I look forward to having you back again.
Well, we really have to give a big shout out to Sam Antar. He has really, really stayed on top of this case and has really brought a lot of this to light. Let me see if I can get us a feed to the White House. So bear with me one second. I know they're starting to come online with some of it. Let's see if we can find a live feed at this point. Here we go. All right, let's see what we can get. Now, it's just now starting up, so they have not begun anything yet, but I think we can see some of the people that are there. Let's give it a second for it to actually go through. Like I said, they just hit the button to make it go live at the White House. So as soon as it pulls up, we will hopefully be able to see a nice big picture right there from the White House. So again, you're not going to miss anything. We got it right here, and I got a spare channel if necessary. They probably just have this stuck on a loop right this second, but it will come right back to us in just a moment. Here it is. It will begin shortly. All right, I'll take their word for it. So as soon as it starts up, we will take it live. So let's recap here on Tish James. Tish James, it could happen to a nicer person. Remember, and by the way, folks, I think there's going to be a much grander, a much larger issue that's going to go down with this here. It's not going to be just one property and just Letitia James. I am firmly believing, I'm definitely hopeful that President Trump and his team are looking at a conspiracy, more like a what they call, a RICO. That's what they went after President Trump for, at least in Fulton County, Georgia, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade. It was a RICO, where you're having a RICO, racketeering, internally corrupt organizations. Okay, the same thing should apply. I believe, based on reports that I've heard and documentation that I have seen, they have evidence of meetings between Joe Biden's White House, Kamala Harris, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Jack Smith, and of course, Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor there in New York City, and sweet Letitia James, among other people. Let's just let it go at that, among other people, and see where it all unfolds. That's the reason why, among other reasons, I don't think they're going to have any type of problem with the so-called statute of limitations. And to that, all I can say is yay and amen and fantastic. They should all be held accountable for what they did. And just in case in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, I don't know, ever so slyly, let's just say you may be thinking to yourself, this seems like a whole lot to do about nothing. Well, remember this. In relation to the Alvin Bragg situation, where they in New York City, and of course, I'm sure Letitia James had plenty to do with that particular situation, that verdict right there, where Donald Trump was convicted on 34 felonies. Let me just take a quick trip down memory lane as we're waiting for Charlie Kirk to show up here, or for the so hopefully he doesn't show up, but you know what I'm talking about. The ceremony for him is going to start up. You had the city of New York take what were at best dead misdemeanors. In other words, there were 34 cases, checks is what they boiled down to, where President Trump counted something as a personal expense, not a campaign expense, a personal expense. And they said, no, that was wrong, that was fraud. He should have listed it as a campaign expense. And of course, their theory was, hey, if he would have counted it as a campaign expense, he would have had to disclose it to the public, and that could have changed the outcome of the election. And that's a complete fabrication. That's completely wrong, because even if that was true, President Trump would not have had made any type of disclosure until well after the election. And by the way, had he counted it as a campaign contribution or a campaign expense, you know what would have happened? They would have immediately filed the same charges, except the story this time would be, oh, look at this. He's trying to pay the porn star, the Stormy Daniels lady, trying to pay her via 34 separate checks for something that had to do with his misconduct against his wife. That's what they would have said all day long. But in this case, they went after him for misfiling. Well, guess what? It was they were misdemeanors. And the most important thing to remember is the statute of limitation is ran. So what did you have happen? You had Alvin Bragg, city of New York, decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and use campaign finance law, federal campaign finance law, and we're going to go ahead and resurrect these dead misdemeanors because the federal law has a longer statute of limitations. We're going to resurrect these, and we're going to charge him with 34 felonies. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what they did. They charged him with the 34 felonies. They tried him in the heart of New York City. You have 92% of everyone that votes in New York City is a Democrat. And there should be no surprise that there was a conviction of 34 felonies against President Trump. Very unfortunate. And it shows us just how problematic our legal system is. I like to talk on this channel a lot about the legal system and about how to protect yourself and how to protect yourself and your family. And in the event that, God forbid, you're faced with some type of legal problem, and this case is spot on. This case shows you exactly what the problem is. Some of the problems are with our judicial legal system. Boom. You have to know how to handle any type of interaction with law enforcement. You have to know how to invoke your rights under the Fifth Amendment, as far as your right to remain silent. Invoke your Sixth Amendment, as far as saying basically, hey, I want to talk to an attorney, or I want to have an attorney appointed for me. All of these things are extremely important to know, but make no mistake about it. President Trump was convicted 34 times, 34 felonies, in that one case over misdemeanors involving how business records were kept or categorized. And yet you have Letitia James here basically saying, hey, this is no big deal. It's a whole lot to do about nothing. You even have CNN reporters basically saying, hey, everybody does it. Don't pay any attention to it. Everybody does it, right? No, that's not correct. Everybody does not engage in that type of nonsense. It's just wrong. And we just have to call it what it is. So we're just waiting for this feed to start up directly from the White House's page here. So let me make sure that this is a direct link to their website at the White House. This should be the fastest link, if I may say it that way. This is directly from the whitehouse.gov. And again, as soon as it starts, we're going to take it live. Still waiting up, but I'm going to continue to monitor it as I have been doing. So let's go ahead and let's switch and let's continue talking a little bit more about Letitia James and some of the nonsense that she has just been indicted for. So this is another thing just from a day or two ago pertaining to Newsmax. Another story that I think they did a great job in capturing the essence of what she is faced with as of right now. So let's take a look at it.
Joel Gilbert, film producer, independent investigative reporter, and all-around amazing.
Yeah, this guy here on your screen, I believe his last name is Goldberg. This is, let's just say, the BFF of Sam Antar, if you will. These guys work together, is my understanding. I know I've seen them on video working together to get to the bottom of these allegations against Letitia James. So let's continue with this right here, and we'll talk about it as we go.
Amazing guy, Joel. Congratulations. You had a big part in all of this. You worked a little bit with Mr. Antar, but wow, how do you feel about your that a lot of people write stories and nothing really happens? Something really happened here.
Well, it is good to see the work get recognized by the legal authorities, because it's really been since March, and I compiled a mountain of evidence that Letitia James was engaged in a pattern of mortgage fraud that went back to 1983, when she was only 24 years old. She claimed in her very first purchase of a townhome that she had married her father in order to qualify for the loan. And I guess leopards don't change their stripes, because every single mortgage transaction she did in Brooklyn, New York, with her apartment building, she told the mortgage companies and refinance companies it was either 1 unit or only 4 units in the building, even though the certificate of occupancy said it was 5 units. And that's critical, because with 4 units or less, you get lower interest rates, residential rates, and low closing costs. And that's how she avoided higher interest rates.
That's important. That's a very important distinction, a very important point to recognize. Again, that's something we talked about on this channel. It's not just, oh, I signed a document without knowing everything that was in the document. It was in the legalese, so to speak. It's like this Joel here is saying, she was also lying about the type of properties they were. If they were 4 units in one building, they were entitled to certain types of loans. If it was 5, they were not entitled to that. So she would lie about what type of unit it was. Is it a 4 dwelling unit or a 5 dwelling unit? And make no mistake about it, it adds up to be a lot of money over time. And she's also tying up resources in the form of loans that could and should have went to people that were deserving of it under the terms of the applicable program. It's really just that simple.
It's for commercial buildings and very high closing costs. She did the same thing in Virginia. She bought 3 homes, and on 2 of them, she said it would be her primary residence, because the banks give you lower interest rates because they think you'll take care of the property better than if it was a rental. So it's a pattern of mortgage fraud. She can't claim that she didn't have intent. She can't claim she didn't know the law, because she's been suing people in New York for these very same things. And she said that any tiny mistake on a mortgage application is a grave crime. And that's what she charged Donald Trump with. So I think there's going to be more superseding indictments coming over other properties in Virginia, and a big, big indictment coming for all of her pattern of fraud on the Brooklyn apartment building. And
you know, while I'm thinking about it too, something else that we've talked about, I just remembered it, wanted to make sure I mentioned it while it's fresh on my mind, and that is another situation, another potential legal consequence she could face is the fact that she actually had individuals from her office inside the New York Attorney General's office actually notarize her signature on certain documents. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but what you basically have is you have an elected representative utilizing state resources on her personal applications or personal loans, businesses, whatever. Not only that, she was using state resources to perpetuate and continue her pattern of fraud. And that cannot be understated. That is a very serious allegation, and I hope she's charged for that particular crime.
New York.
Well, I think she deserves it. After all, she went after Trump with that stupid, totally disingenuous, totally bogus case. It was beyond ridiculous. Can I ask you this? I know some people see her getting a lot of attention right now, and they think, well, she can't be in all that much trouble. They're going to protect her. She's actually kind of becoming more powerful and recognized. Something tells me that's not true, that this is a real case and it could do real harm to her, i.e. incarceration or losing her law license and who knows what else.
Yeah, look, don't forget Eric Schneiderman resigned immediately when he had a couple of allegations. So Letitia is trying to hang on by saying, oh, well, Trump is, of all things, you know, the hypocrisy saying that Trump is weaponizing the system against her. But she has a pattern of 24 years in 2 states on 4 different properties of blatant mortgage fraud to get rates and closing costs that she was not entitled to. It includes a government loan from HAMP, you know, under the TARP program, 2011. She told the U.S. government to get rid of her.
By the way, that's one of the many photos that you're looking at on your screen right there, where you have Letitia James sitting behind Donald Trump. And in the photo we just saw a second ago, she's got that big smile on that face of hers, right? Big old smile on her ugly mug as she's there torturing Donald Trump and thinks she's just having the time of her life back there. And of course, now she is talking about how it's such a vindictive prosecution. I'll show you someone that's being vindictive, someone that's misusing their office. It's on your screen right now. You can see her sitting right behind President Trump just to spite him. You know what I'd like to see? It's not going to happen, but I tell you what I'd love to see. I'd love to see President Donald Trump sitting behind her at one of her many trials to come. That's exactly what I would like to see. And also, there's one other point I got to say. There's a lot of people, the talking heads on TV, they're saying, oh, guess what? There's no way that this case is going to stand. It's going to be dismissed, or she's going to be acquitted, or whatever. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care. If that's the case, God bless her. Find her not guilty, throw the case out, whatever. The point is, I can assure you, folks, the pain, the problem is the ride. The problem is not necessarily do you get off in the end. It's expensive. It's stressful. It's time consuming. Her credibility takes a hit. It's just torturous. The ride itself is torture. President Trump can definitely attest to that fact.
10% private bank loan. She wanted to get 2.7% on the back of the American taxpayer. She got a government loan by claiming a financial hardship, even though she was making $14,000 a month, and again by lying, saying she only had 4 units. So I don't think she gets out of it in any way. It's too long, too many years, too much of a pattern. I don't think she's going to last very long. I think she's going to have to cop a plea because the number of indictments that are coming, I think, is going to be.
Yeah, and remember this, it's going to be multiple indictments. And just because she's been given a Biden-appointed judge on the federal level, so what? Think about it from the judge's perspective. If he dismisses it, people are going to say, oh, it was just a Biden judge letting her off. She's guilty. In a way, he's almost put in the position of having to allow the case to go to a jury because of what I just stated. They don't want that appearance that somehow the court is slanted, that it has its own agenda. They really, at least they don't want that perception out there that we know what the reality is. So just take that with a grain of salt. That's a problem for her, and the ride is going to be the torture.
Staggering, and I don't think she's going to be able to withstand it with these phony arguments. And putting on a phony voice that she's a 1960s civil rights leader.
I know,
right,
it's such
I love that
act,
comment.
right?
She's like, you know how she's been all over Instagram, whatever it was. She posted her response, and she's, no weapon formed against me will prosper. Like she's some kind of religious icon or something like that. Or as this gentleman just said, a 1960 civil rights leader. She's nothing of the sort, despite whatever comes out of her mouth.
Know about Judge Jamar? We may or may not have a picture of him, but Judge Jamar looks like he's awfully woke. It looks like, well, he's an Obama appointee. He always makes a point to celebrate LGBTQ this and Juneteenth and everything, all those holidays. Something tells me he's going to be on her side. Is she happy? I mean, it looks like she got a break as far as the judge.
Well, look, during the Obama years and Biden years, they intentionally stacked the legal system to try to accommodate any such scenario that their people came before judges, or that a Republican could win and they could put injunctions on everything. So it's a deliberate policy. But for Letitia, she's going to face, she has a grand jury in New York, completely separate jurisdiction. So I think people are fair-minded.
Look at that ugly
when they
mug
look at
right there. Oh my
evidence, and even in the current case, there's no answer other than she deliberately committed mortgage and bank fraud. It's also going to be wire fraud, insurance fraud,
There we go.
you name it. So I believe in the system, and I don't think that judge can do too much given the charges and what they are.
Who's your next target, man? What are you working on?
Well, I only tell you when I come out with it. Otherwise,
Yeah, we'll stop it there. That was the meat of this particular video. This guy here, like I said, this guy did an excellent job along with the great Sam Antar as far as drilling down and exposing all of this criminal activity on behalf of Letitia James. It just is what it is. So she'll have to pay that. She'll have to pay the price, folks. She'll have to ride that road, so to speak. And look, she deserves it. I could not be happier personally seeing these individuals finally being held accountable. Can you imagine going through all of the torture, all of the pain that President Trump went through? I mean, it's almost hard to imagine going through that on a personal level, even being a wealthy individual like President Trump obviously is. I mean, let's face it, they went after him in any and every way they possibly could. In relation to President Trump, they went after his children. They went after his associates. They went after the people that were supporting him, different advisors, people like Steve Bannon, and just the people in his inner circle, if you will. They also went after him in different states. The Mar-a-Lago nonsense with his taxes, or the property should only be worth $18 million. Just complete and utter nonsense with Judge Engoron there in New York City. You had individuals actually strip this man's name off of the ballot. This is something that had not happened in the United States since it happened to President Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. So it's somewhat unprecedented. At least it's unprecedented in modern time or modern American history. And, you know, it's very sad, very upsetting that it was allowed to happen to President Trump. Thank God he did win the re-election and that he's able to move forward accordingly. So I got to show you this one more clip here. Not only, and just to remind everybody, this is something we did touch base on before, but it's so important to revisit it. This is another reason you do not talk to law enforcement, or you don't go on TV and give interviews. Here's one of these woke MSNBC hosts. This was an interview on one of these podcasts that Letitia James gave. And again, we've talked about this, but listen, she says in this interview what I did. It's kind of like a confession. Let's listen to it and you tell me what you think. I went ahead and forwarded exactly to the part that we all need to hear. It's kind of stunning that she'd be this stupid to say something like this during this podcast. But let's take a quick peek at it as we're waiting for the Charlie Kirk ceremony to begin at the White House.
Due process, basically. There are judges, there's the complaint, the civil judgment. That was after a trial when evidence was presented, right? So, like, it's not, you're not just snapping your fingers and this happens. You have to make a case and you have to go through a bunch of processes. I think the cynical view of people like Donald Trump, and I think this might be true of the New York City mayor as well, is if you investigated anyone, you'd find something. That, like, basically the investigatory power is kind of everything, and all of that due process is kind of yada, yada, yada. But if you wanted to get a judgment about someone, you could. And what do you say to that in terms of what the facts actually bore out about the way that Donald Trump, particularly, and his company was conducting its business?
So his investigation, he exaggerated. Let me emphasize that. Exaggerated the value of his assets to the...
So make sure you heard that. She went after him for allegedly exaggerating. Let me see, by the way, I think we got this video going on now. Let's see what we got here. Hopefully the president's, there we go. Okay, we are live now.
Thank you very
White
much,
House
everybody.
here.
Please, this is such an honor. This is the, please be seated. This is the first time we've been at the new and improved Rose Garden, and people are loving it. They're loving it like they've not loved a lot of things. We have the Presidential Walk of Fame, which you just saw, and it just opened, and we wanted to get it open for this occasion. We were hoping we were able to get outside, and the weather allowed us to. It was supposed to be a terrible rainy day. I was telling Eric, and God was watching, and he didn't want that for Charlie. He just didn't want that. So it's really beautiful. It couldn't be more beautiful. Today we're here to honor and remember a fearless warrior for liberty, beloved leader who galvanized the next generation like nobody I've ever seen before, and an American patriot of the deepest conviction, the finest quality and the highest caliber, the late, great Charlie Kirk. Five weeks ago, our nation was robbed of this extraordinary champion. He was a champion in every way. I got to know him so well. He didn't like losing, and he was able to fight people that were enemies, and he didn't necessarily love those enemies so much. You know, I heard he loved his enemies, and I said, wait a minute, is that the same Charlie that I know? I'm not sure, but I didn't want to get into it. But it was a horrible, heinous, demonic act of murder. He was assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you. As you know, only hours ago, I returned from a very historic trip to secure peace in the Middle East. People said that couldn't be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. But I raced back halfway around the globe. I was going to call Erica and say, Erica, could you maybe move it to Friday? And I didn't have the courage to call. But you know why I didn't call? Because I heard today was Charlie's birthday. And I said, you know, that was a definite. And I said, we're going to have to forget about some of those very big, very rich countries that expected me to be there. And I can tell you, based on the length of that flight, I wouldn't want to go back tomorrow. But I would not have missed this moment for anything in the world, nothing. And it's a very important time for our country, and our country is doing so well. It's never done better. We are a country with almost now $18 trillion of investment coming in. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Previous administration had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have more than 18, it'll be much more than 20 by the time the year, more than $20 trillion. There's never been a country in the world that had anything like that. What's happened to our country is incredible in a short period of time. Charlie was a big person for, sir, could we close up those borders, please, a little bit? You know, they're really leaking badly. I said, Charlie, I haven't gotten there yet. But, you know, it came out last 4 months. Literally nobody was allowed into our country. And the only people that were allowed in were people that came in legally. The borders are absolutely stone cold closed. And they reported 0, 0, 0, and 0. So that's pretty good. But he was a big believer. He wanted people in the country more than I did, frankly. He wanted them to come in legally. And he got his wish. October 14th is Charlie's birthday, and he should have been turning 32 years old. I tell you, when I first met him, he was like 22. And I said, boy, he's awfully young. But I thought he was older than that, you know. He looked a little bit older than his age. That's okay, you know. That's not good when you're old, but when you're young, it's great. He had the best of all things, but he was special. But instead, Charlie is attaining a far more important milestone. We're entering his name forever into the eternal roster of true American heroes. He's a true American hero, an amazing person, way, way beyond his years. And I'm honored to be joined by a woman who has endured unspeakable hardship with unbelievable strength, and that's Charlie's widow, Erica. And I just want to thank you, Erica. He loved you so much. I was with him. Oh, please. Thank you, darling. Thank you. I was with him before I met Erica, and he told me he was going to get married. He said, "You won't believe how beautiful she is." I said, well, then now that I meet her, he's right. But then he also said, and you know what? She's like the smartest person I know. See, they do go together on occasion. Not often. Not often. But on occasion they go together. But he was in love with you. He was deeply in love with you. It's great. Erica, your love and courage have been an inspiration to all of us, and we will always be here for you, and we're always going to be here for your gorgeous, beautiful children, and we'll never forget what your family has sacrificed for our country. Man loved our country. When things were going badly for our country, he was so, as you know, angry. He would get angry because he said it doesn't have to be that way. We're also pleased to be joined by an incredible group of Charlie's friends, very powerful friends, actually, and some not so powerful, and they're actually better people, okay? I know them all. They're the less powerful ones. I have to tell you that, all of you power guys down here. The best ones in the group are the ones that are less successful, but that happens too. No, they're all great, and they're here. And let's start with Erica's father. Where is Erica's father? Where are you? Where are you, Dad? Oh, look at him. Wow. I want to get a hat like that, too. I like that. How are you? Nice to see you again. Thanks as well to Vice President J.D. Vance, who's been fantastic. J.D., thank you very much. Great. Doing a great job. Did a great job on Sunday with George Slobodanopoulos. Put him away pretty good. Second lady, who's a phenomenal woman, Usha Vance. Thank you very much, Usha. Thank you very much. Great woman. President of Argentina. He wanted to be here. That's Argentina's a serious flight, right? And he's become a superstar, and he's doing amazing things. He's a MAGA person, but it's make Argentina great again. That's what he does, right? And I want you to stand, please, Javier Milei. Doing a great job. Thank you very much. Many members of my cabinet are here. Just about all of them are here. I won't go into every single one of them, but I'll announce a few of the people that have really turned this country around and helped me. Incredible people. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Where is Mike? Mike, what a job you're doing, Mike. What a job you're doing. And I watched you this morning, and you're in there trying to say, look, just let the country open. Everything will be fine. We're dealing with some radical left lunatics. And I would just wish Charlie was here to fight us. I think the fight would have been over already. He would have had a march on the Capitol by people whose average age is about 21, because there's nobody that had that relationship with young people. Right, Mike? So thank you, Mike, for being here. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Steve, thank you very much. A brave guy and a friend. House Majority Whip, another terrific man, Tom Emmer. Tom. Thank you, Tom. Senate Majority Whip, John Barrasso. John, thank you very much. You have all these senators. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not going to read all their names. I'll be reading all day. We'll be talking about Charlie in about 45 minutes from now. We can't do that. So all of the senators, there's so many of you, thank you very much. I do want to thank Senator Thune for doing a terrific job. He's really been leading properly. Do you agree, Mike? The team, the two of these guys have been fantastic. So to Senator Thune, I want to thank you very much. Incredible job. I watched him this morning, and he was out there pounding them this morning on television, too. And John Barrasso, thank you for the work you've done, and congratulations on your success. But I want to thank you all and all of the Congress people that are here. And I see we have our Attorney General here, and you are doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have everybody. Wow, that's incredible. Okay, I'm not going to do any more. I'm going to be here too long, but I just want to thank you. Have given him such support, but he always gave you such support. That's why you're here. And very unusual. Charles James Kirk was a visionary and one of the greatest figures of his generation. He was truly an amazing figure and growing leaps and bounds. He knew that the fight to preserve our heritage is waged not only on the battlefield and in the halls of power, of which we have tremendous power here, including the head of a place called War. We call it now War. We had Defense. We had our Secretary of Defense. Now we have a Secretary of War. And somehow I think it's more emblematic, and hopefully we'll never have to use war, but the fact that we're ready is very good. Peace through strength is very important, but also in the hearts of our nation's youth. That's where Charlie rode strongest. At age 18, that insight inspired Charlie to found the organization that ultimately touched the lives of millions and millions of people, and so many young people that nobody's ever seen anything like it, frankly. Turning Point USA. It's amazing, and it's actually bigger now. It's become bigger in the last few weeks than Charlie ever thought. I think his end vision in many years from now would have been just a fraction of what it turned out to be in a couple of weeks, right? It's amazing. With hard work and joyful spirit and endless enthusiasm and determination. And he did have great enthusiasm. You know, I always say you need enthusiasm to be successful. He had great enthusiasm. Charlie grew Turning Point into the largest conservative youth organization in the entire country. He forged a personal bond with countless young conservatives. He fought for free speech, religious liberty, strong borders, and a very strong and proud America. In everything he did, he put America first. He really put America first. And ultimately, Charlie became more than a leader of an important organization. He became the leader of historic movements all over the country. There were movements, individual movements, one movement, but it was historic. Everything he did was historic, and a true evangelist for the cause of freedom and the word of Almighty God. God was very important to Charlie. He would say, you know, if you don't have religion, you're not going to have a strong country. It's true. He was so wise beyond his years. You know, I talk to him sometimes and say, this guy is like a young guy. He was really a wise man. From the time Charlie worked on my presidential campaign in 2016, and he was there right from the beginning. He liked me. I don't know. I have no idea why. What the hell was he thinking? He said, you're going to win, sir. I said, you know, I'm running against 17 senators and a lot of tough people and governors. We have all these people. And he said, no, you're going to win, sir. He said, not going to be close. And he made it happen. He helped make it happen, I'll tell you that. Without him, who knows what would be. Maybe you'd have Kamala standing here today. That would not be good.
No way.
I will tell you, Javier, you don't know who Kamala is. Promise. It would not be good. You agree with that, Howard? He also mobilized countless citizens to go vote. It's called Go Vote. Very simple. And with his help in 2024, we won more young people than any Republican by far in the history of our country. And we won the popular vote. We won the swing states, all 7 of them. Remember, they said, oh, well, if Trump could win 4, that would be nice. I win 7 by a lot, by a landslide. But the popular vote was massive. And we won the Electoral College. Remember, they said, well, it's going to be very hard. I'd say 270. Well, we got 312 to 226. And then we won something called districts and councils and different things. But in one case, we won 2,750 to 525. That's the one where you see the map is almost entirely red, except they have a little blue line on one side and a little blue line, meaning New York and a little bit Los Angeles. I have a feeling that if the vote were 100%, we would have won that too. You want to know the truth. But he knew, and he knew very well, and he also understood honesty, and he was always concerned with honesty. He said the only way we can lose is if the cheating gets so bad, and that's where we came up with a little phrase, too big to rig. We said, go out and vote. Just go out and vote. And we had that. Remember, we used to say that all the time because people would say, oh, they're going to win. We don't have to vote. Let's go to a movie. We'll come home and watch later. And he wasn't about that. So we come up to, together, we came up with that phrase. We got to make it too big. I never made a speech where I didn't say at the end, now look, the polls are showing good. Don't believe the polls. He said, we're going to make it, Susie, right? Too big to rig. So if you think we're going to win by a lot, doesn't matter. Pretend we're losing. You got to go out and vote. They voted. And at 9:02, the whole thing was over, right? 9:02. Remember they said, oh, this could go a few days. Well, it went a few minutes. 9:02. And he knew that. And I felt it, but he knew it. He knew it. I think he knew it more than anybody. But Charlie never missed an opportunity to remind us of the Judeo-Christian principles of our nation's founding or to share his deep Christian faith. In his final moments, Charlie testified to the greatness of America and to the glory of our Savior, with whom he now rests in heaven. And he is going to make heaven. I said, I'm not sure I can make it, but he's going to make it. He's there. He's looking down on us right now. It's so incredible. Look at this, how this turned out. This was supposed to be so dark and cloudy. Not dark and cloudy, is it? Look at that, how beautiful that is. There's no artist that can capture it as beautiful as it is today. Wow, it's amazing. As I said, on the day that he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for truth and for freedom. And from Socrates to think, and to St. Peter, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King, those who change history the most, and he really did, have always risked their lives for causes they were put on earth to defend. He was put on earth to do exactly what he was doing. He didn't want to waste time. He would have been a top student at any college in the country. I know the college as well. He's smarter than the guys there. He was so smart. But he almost, I guess, didn't have the time. He knew what he wanted to do. It wasn't like, gee, I want to sit in the classroom for 4 years listening to people teach me liberal principles, because they were never going to teach him that anyway. But he didn't have the time. He really didn't have the time. But every time the enemies of goodness and virtue tried to silence the voice of righteous and noble leaders like Charlie, they failed. They seem to fail. Ultimately, they look like they're doing well, and then they end up failing, because the truth has been unrelenting over the years, over history. And people like Charlie, it's just they've got a power that others don't have, and very few people will ever have. So today, like those martyrs before him, Charlie's voice, his message, and his legacy are stronger and greater than ever before. They are greater than ever before. Look, this is a horrible event, but it brought out the greatness of Charlie. Nothing could have ever supplanted this. It's incredible, the way people are talking about him. And with great love. I mean, I read so many stories about some of the enemies, but I watch the enemies, and it's hard for them to speak badly about him because they just don't. And then you do have people in the days since Charlie's killing, we've seen exactly why our country so dearly needed his example. We've watched legions of far-left radicals resort to desperate acts of violence and terror because they know that their ideas and arguments are persuading no one. They know that they're failing. They have the devil's ideology, and they're failing, and they know it. They feel it, and they become violent. They seem to become very violent on the left. They've rammed vehicles into federal law enforcement, fired sniper rifles at ICE agents, and me, you know. But I made a turn at a good time. I made a turn at a good time. I turned to the right. Charlie couldn't believe it, actually. He said, how the hell did you make that turn? I said, I don't know. But fired rifles and threatened the lives of our Supreme Court justices, our great justices. They have to be protected. We just issued a lot of money, $60 million, to protect the Supreme Court justices. Very important. We can't let anything happen. In places of worship, we're protecting our people. We've seen that a candidate for Attorney General in Virginia boasted that he would want to see the Republican legislature, a legislator in Virginia, shot in the head and to see his children murdered. He actually said this. And now he continues to run for office, and most people continue to back him, but he said he wants his man shot. He said shot in the head and to see his children murdered. And they keep running. Pretty amazing, right? That's a bad one. Let's see how that turns out, but that's a really bad one. Nobody's heard that one before. Especially in the wake of Charlie's assassination, our country must have absolutely no tolerance for this radical left violence, extremism, and terror. We're done with the angry mobs, and we're not going to let our cities be unsafe. We're going to make sure our cities are safe. When you have Chicago, where they had 4,000 people murdered over a very short period of time, 4,000 people, and then we have a governor stand up and say, oh, things are going swimmingly. No, they're not. We're going to make Chicago safe, just like we're going to make, look what we did in D.C. It's so nice that we started here, because this was one of the most violent places in the United States. It'd be dangerous to be right out here. But you couldn't go to a restaurant. The restaurants were all dying. The whole place was dying. You'd have these gorgeous, look at the Washington Monument over there. You'd have these gorgeous buildings and monuments and structures. And people were afraid to leave their apartment. They were afraid to go to work. They'd get into an Uber and they'd feel safe, and then the Uber would be attacked. They thought they made it to safety, and then the Uber was attacked on the trip in. But we've done a great job, and now it's considered a totally safe city. We haven't had problems. It took us 12 days to make it great. We took out, Pam, 1,700 hard criminals, career criminals in many cases, but these are hardened criminals. Many of them came in through the Biden open borders. We brought them back to the countries. And a couple were so violent that we put them in jail. We don't want to take a chance that they could get back in, because no matter how good we do, somebody can sneak in. They were so violent and so bad. One arrested 28 times. Every time he left prison, he'd get into a violent incident. 28 times. And we put him away for a long time. But we're done with the angry mobs. We're done with it. This is such an unbelievable place right now. You take a look where you can walk down the middle of the street with your wife or your husband. Your children can walk. They can walk alone. It doesn't matter. They can walk anywhere in Washington, and they're safe now. If this were a year and a half ago, a year ago, they'd have a serious chance of being badly hurt, even killed. Even killed. They'd come in from Indiana, they'd come in from Iowa, they'd come from Florida to see their nation's capital, and somebody would have to call the parents, I'm sorry, but your son or your daughter's been killed. Not anymore. You hear those sirens going off? That's good. That's a good sound. That means they either got the bad guy or they're going to stop the bad guy. You didn't hear that sound because nobody wanted to do anything. Nobody, listen to the beauty of that sound. Seriously. And that's the real deal sirens. They're not politically correct sirens. You hear them, they're about 3 miles away. That's great. What a beautiful sound. They're stopping crime. That's what they're doing. So we're done with the voices of fools. They're fools. And death threats, and we're going to make our cities safe. And I thought it was Charlie's, one of his biggest dreams was that he couldn't believe it. Chicago's going to be a great city again. We've already, we sent people in there 6 months ago, and this governor said, well, crime is down. Yeah, that's because we had the FBI in there for 6 months, just preparing it for the bigger surge. And they've done a great job, the cash and the FBI. They've done a great job, and they love doing it, They love being able to do it. They were restricted from doing it. They couldn't do anything. And now they're totally unrestricted. All they have to do is stop crime, and they're doing it. By the way, Memphis, as you know, you heard they went in about a week ago. one of the most dangerous places in the country. It's really in the world. It's not just the country. They have very few cities that would compare to some of these cities. You go to Afghanistan, you say, oh, that's unsafe. Well, the crime numbers are much better than the crime numbers in places that we have. So Memphis, I understand, is doing unbelievably in 1 week. It's like a different place. And this took 12 days, and then after that, we just perfected it. But after 12 days, we had good safety here. After 1 month, it's like, it's really amazing. And by the way, restaurants are booming. Restaurants are opening up. The big problem we have, you can't get into a restaurant in D.C. anymore. So they're opening up. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's called safety. It's called law enforcement and letting them do their job. And that's why I said last month that I have directed the Attorney General and the Department of Homeland Security to confront the very real threat of left-wing terrorism in our country. It's a real threat. Not when you confront it, it's not, because they're not brave people. In fact, they're cowards. When you confront them, they immediately fold. You have to see them fold. You have to see them crying. They fold. But it includes dismantling the networks that fund them and finance them, and we're finding out who those networks are. We already know quite a few of them. When you see these violent incidents and then you see people holding this gorgeous sign with beautiful wood, beautiful cardboard, wood, everything's perfect paint job, and they're all the same. There are thousands of them. You know that they weren't made in the basement out of love. They were made by anarchists, and in some cases wealthy. I'll probably find some of my nice friends that are up there being so nice to me, especially lately. They're being very nice. But it surprises you who they may be, and you almost wonder why would they do it? But they're hurting our country, and we're really taking it back one by one. If we didn't go into Los Angeles early on in the administration, the commissioner, the chief of police, Los Angeles, said if they didn't go in, we would have lost our city. Now, they already lost 25,000 houses to fire because they wouldn't let the water come in from the Pacific Northwest, which they should have done. I said, you better do it. They didn't do it, and we had 25,000 homes where they had no water in their sprinklers, they had no water in the fire hydrants. It would have been a different kind of a thing if they did what they were supposed to do. We had to break in. We broke in and had the water come down. They actually, they said for the environment, great, they lost 25,000 houses. It's incredible. But the commissioner said without the federal government and President Trump's intervention, we would have lost the entire city. And we have the Olympics going there soon. I got the Olympics. We have the Olympics. We have the World Cup. And we have, most importantly, we have the 250th anniversary of our country. That's going to be most important. And all of these things are happening. And we're going to have safe cities. We're going to have very, very safe cities. So 1 month after Charlie's death, we still feel the terrible shock and the pain of his loss, like just about nobody I can think of. Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was unstoppable. And he really was. Boy, when he had an idea in his head, oh, he would call me, sir, please, you haven't done it yet. I said, Charlie, relax. Just relax. He didn't relax. He'd call me the next day again. It got it done. But he was like indomitable and always will be. He's really irreplaceable. Nobody can replace him. But they're going to do great. But you can't replace that kind of person and that kind of talent, frankly. The word talent is an important word, but that kind of talent. So we hold his memory in our hearts forever. Every single day of this administration, we will continue to carry out the mission for which he lived, and he really did. He lived for this country. He lived for his wife and his family, but he lived for this country too. In Charlie's honor, we will continue like we have been to fight, 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 and to win, win, win. We're going to win so much. So the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a big deal. You have the Congressional Medal of Honor, military, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is civilian. And the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a really big deal. Very few people get it. Very few people, frankly, qualify. It's a decision of the president, but it's a qualification that's a very hard one to get. And I would like to ask, if I might, the military aide to read Charles James Kirk's citation for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Charles James Kirk. Accepting on behalf of Charlie is his wife, Mrs. Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk was one of the most influential American political figures of his generation. At just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA and grew it into the largest conservative youth organization in the nation. For over a decade, he tirelessly traveled the country, leading a movement to restore respect for our founding principles, reawaken our national identity, and inspire a renewed spirit of religious devotion. He was one of the great debaters and communicators of his time. Despite receiving repeated threats, he remained undeterred and modeled courage, logic, humor, and grace to the next generation. On September 10th, 2025, at age 31, Charlie Kirk was assassinated while addressing a group of students. The United States honors him as a martyr for truth and freedom.
Amen. I think his wife's going to give some comments here.
Thank you, Mr. President, for honoring my husband in such a profound and meaningful way. And thank you for making this event a priority amid the peace process in the Middle East. Thank you. Very grateful. Charlie always admired your commitment to freedom, and that's something that both of you shared. So thank you. Your support of our family and the work that Charlie devoted his life to will be something I cherish forever, so thank you. To our gracious First Lady in her office for making this event possible, thank you as well. It's beautiful. To Vice President and the lovely Usha fans, your friendship has been an unbelievable encouragement. Thank you. And to all our friends and family that are here and watching from all around the world, thank you for loving us. Thank you for praying for us and for believing in what Charlie believed in. And to our Turning Point USA staff and the Charlie Kirk Show staff, we love you more than you could ever know. And to the Turning Point USA chapters that are watching all across America right now, you are the heartbeat of this future and of this movement. Everything that Charlie built, you guys are the legacy holders of that. You are living proof that his mission did not die with him. It lives through you. And Charlie always said the next generation will decide whether freedom endures. And because of you, I know that freedom will endure. It will. And today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom. The very existence of the Presidential Medal of Freedom reminds us that the national interest of the United States has always been freedom. Our founders etched it into the preamble of our Constitution, and those words are not relics on parchment. They are a living covenant. The blessings of liberty are not man's invention, they are God's endowment. Charlie lived for those blessings, not as abstract words, but as sacred promises. He used to love to journal about this topic all the time, and with such a heart postured of gratitude. And he believed that liberty was both a right and a responsibility. And he used to say, freedom is the ability to do what is right without fear. And that's how he lived. He was free from fear. He was free from compromise, free from anything that could enslave his soul. His name, Charles, literally means free man. And that's exactly who my husband was. He was a free man. And from the time I met him, sitting across from him, being interviewed on politics and philosophy and theology, anything that Charlie loved, any topic he loved. And I just saw the fire in his soul, and there was this divine restlessness within him that came from knowing God placed him on this earth to protect something very, very sacred for all of us. And he never stopped fighting for people to experience freedom. He didn't. Charlie often said that without God, freedom becomes chaos. And he believed liberty could only survive when anchored to truth. And I remember in one of his speeches, he told the audience that the opposite of liberty isn't law. He said it's captivity. And that the freest people in the world are those whose hearts belong to Christ. But what's so powerful is that Charlie had the ability to communicate so brilliantly across all generations. And he reminded us that in a world that tells us freedom is doing whatever you want to do, the real freedom is the power to live freely and to do what is right. And in one of his journal entries, he wrote that he wanted everyone to know that you can't have liberty without moral responsibility. Freedom divorced from faith eventually just destroys itself. And what's so fascinating about all of this is looking back these past 12 years of Turning Point USA and his mission, there's almost this veil of sacredness. Because what I realized is that while he was building an organization, he was also building a movement. One that called people back to God, back to truth, and a movement that was filled with courage. And ironically, for a man who impacted millions, Charlie never desired to be the center of attention. He just wasn't. My husband was not a man of extravagance. He loved simple but deeply meaningful things, truly. He loved his late night walks. He loved buying more books than he could ever read because he felt there was no such thing as a book budget. And he loved being able to read to our kids the same bedtime story on repeat because he knew it was their favorite. But to him, that was special. And he loved to sit in the sun on a Saturday morning with his cup of decaf coffee, and his phone was off because he was honoring the Sabbath. And for him, it was that moment to catch his breath and just be in peace because he was unreachable at the moment. And he preferred quiet birthdays. But that never stopped me from telling him. I told him every single year, I said, baby, I love your birthday. I said, because it's the day that God knew the world couldn't go another day without you. And so the rhythm of our usual birthday celebration for him was mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream. He only had it twice a year, on his birthday and 4th of July. It's just, and then after that, it was back to work as usual. But last year, his one birthday wish was to see the Oregon Ducks play the Ohio State. And they won. Oregon won that night. And it was by far one of the most memorable nights of his birthday experience of his life until today. And so, honestly, President Trump, I have spent 7.5 years trying to find the perfect birthday gift for Charlie. And it's so difficult. And those of you that have spouses or loved ones, you know how difficult it is sometimes to buy a gift for someone that you love, because he wasn't a materialistic man, so that also did not help. But now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have. It's such an honor and the recognition of a life lived for defending freedom. And that's what Charlie fought for until his last breath. And it was written across his chest in those final moments on one of his simple t-shirts that always carried a message, and this one bearing a single word, freedom. That was the banner over his life, and that shirt was a declaration. The same declaration he made in every speech, every campus visit, every time he shared the gospel at a church, every sleepless night that he would spend praying for the youth of this nation and planning for the future of our country, and just impressing upon them that when we defend liberty, we defend the soul of our nation. My husband never told anyone what to say. He never did. He never told anyone what to say. He would just encourage them to think. He would encourage them to think outside of the traditional political labels. He would want them to think in a way that was anchored in wisdom and truth. But he would never tell anyone what to say. Charlie wasn't content to simply admire freedom. He wanted to multiply it. He wanted to multiply freedom. He wanted young people to taste it and to understand it and defend it. He wanted them to see that liberty isn't self-indulgence, it's self-governance under God. He wanted them to see that. And every day I'd see him getting ready for work. He'd put on his cross necklace, he'd put his ring on his finger. And the boldness in his demeanor was always fearlessness. He wasn't afraid. He was never afraid. In his daily actions, whether in office or on campus or at a church, it was always without fear. That was his creed. That is how he lived out every single day. He didn't fear being slandered. He did not. He didn't fear losing friends, I can tell you that. He didn't. He didn't care. He stood for truth and stood for freedom, and he did not, everything else was just noise to him. And it's because his confidence in Christ was absolute. That's why. There was no limit to what he would have sacrificed to defend freedom for all. And if the moment had come, he probably would have run for president, but not out of ambition. He would only have done it if that was something that he believed that his country needed from a servant's heart standpoint. And Charlie lived only 31 short years. I was 32, but on this side of heaven, but he lived. He lived every single second he lived. He filled every single day with purpose, and he fought for truth when it was unpopular. And he stood for God when it was costly, but that's what we're called to do. Surprisingly enough, he did pray for his enemies, which is very hard, but he did. He did. He did. No one else, I mean, I saw him do it. No, he never did it in front of anyone else, but I can attest to that. But he also loved people when it was inconvenient. And he ran his race with endurance, and he kept the faith. And now he wears the crown of a righteous martyr. And for me and for our children, the truth really steadies our grief, because heaven gained what earth could no longer contain: a free man made fully free. And to all watching, this is not a ceremony. This is a commissioning. And my message is simple. I want you to be the embodiment of this medal. I do. I want you to free yourself from fear. I want you to stand courageously in the truth. Listen for the still, small voice of God. And remember that while freedom is inherited in this country, each of us must be intentional stewards every single day. God began a mighty work through my husband, and I intend to see it through. And the torch is in our hands now. It's in mine, it's in yours, it's in all of yours, it's in all the students with Turning Point USA. And before I close, I'll share with you that I asked our daughter what she would like to say to Daddy for his birthday. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal. I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream, and I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you," is what she said. And while our son is precious, he can't yet speak, in classic Kirk family fashion, his actions spoke louder than his words, and his gift to you, Charlie, and myself for that matter, was deciding to become the man of the house and be fully potty trained at 16 months. But Charlie, baby, I know that you're celebrating in heaven today, but gosh, I miss you. We miss you. And we love you, and we promise we'll make you proud. And Charlie's life was proof that freedom is not a theory, it's a testimony. He showed us that liberty begins not in the halls of power, but in the man of a heart surrendered to God. And so today, as we honor Charlie with this incredible Presidential Medal of Freedom on his birthday, I stand here with tears and just a humbled heart and spirit, because his story reminds us all that to live free is the greatest gift, but to die free is the greatest victory. Happy birthday, my Charlie. Happy Freedom Day. God bless you.
All right. Have to be careful with the music for copyright issues, but tough stuff, huh? Beautiful, beautiful speech by the president and his widow, Erica Kirk, of course, right from the White House. You've been watching that live. It's tough. That's tough. It's a tough, sad situation, but at the same time, it's clearly a beautiful service. I definitely think the president did the right thing in giving him this special Medal of Freedom, the highest honor that the president can bestow upon a civilian. I think it's appropriate and well deserved. I think that's probably the best way to close it out. It is what it is. It's sad. The world's a tough place, but let's just be straight and be honest about it. But at the same time, let us take comfort in knowing that Charlie Kirk has been fearless in his defense of family, faith, and freedom. And as I said earlier, whether you disagreed with him or you agreed with everything he said one way or the other, it's really, really hard to deny that he was all about educating people, educating young people, motivating them, waking up young Americans, and letting them know that they can contribute to our great country and they can make a difference. And of course, he also stood to bring people to Christ. He wanted to see everybody join him in heaven and to accept Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. And of course, I encourage each and every one of you to do the same. So we're going to go ahead and land it at this point. I think that was a fantastic service. If you're new to the channel, thanks for being here. If you're a regular, hey, appreciate you being here too. Thank you for everyone that joined from Twitch and, of course, on YouTube. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, you can do me that favor, hit the thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe so you know when I bring another video out so that you get an alert. Appreciate y'all being here today. I always like to say, keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, my friends, I am J.R. Dukes.